What's going on, guys? It's Cimoooooooo. So today I'm bringing to you a card discussion on Utopia Double. Now, Utopia Double is a card that really got to show off its capabilities at the North American World Championship qualifier. We did see this card pop up here and there at some of the European national events, but it didn't have nearly as grand of a stage, nor the notoriety that the card has now. And so I want to take the time to discuss in depth this card's strengths and weaknesses, because this is a card you're probably going to start seeing a lot more often, and you might even see it at the Pro Play Tour Games event in Richmond, Virginia this weekend. So if you're going to be in the area, definitely come by and check it out. It's only 20 bucks to enter. $2,000 prize pool is up for grabs, and I'll have the link down in the description so you guys can check it out. I'll also be there doing live stream commentary for the event as well. So hope to see you guys there. But let's go ahead and circle back to Utopia Double. So Utopia Double is a rank 4 light warrior Xyz effect monster with 0 attack and 2500 defense, and has an effect that reads as follows. It requires any 2 level 4 monsters to make. As a quick effect, you can detach 1 material from this card to add 1 double or nothing from your deck to your hand. Then special summon from your extra deck 1 Utopia Xyz monster except itself by using this face-up card you control as material. And if you do, its attack becomes doubled, but it cannot attack directly. This is treated as an Xyz summon and transfer its materials to the summon monster. You can only use this effect of number 39 Utopia Double once per turn. So that was a bit much, but there is one thing we also do need to discuss as well, and that is the effect of double or nothing, because this is a very crucial component as to why this card is going to be so powerful. So double or nothing is a quick play spell that reads as follows. When a monster's attack is negated, target that monster. It can make a second attack during the battle phase, and if it does, its attack is doubled during the damage step only. So double or nothing is a much simpler card by comparison, but when you put these two together, they make for a very potent combination. So in short, what the combo is that when you have any 2 level 4 monsters on your field, you're going to go ahead and Xyz summon Utopia Double. From there, you're going to go ahead and use the quick effect to add a copy of double or nothing to your hand. Then you're going to Xyz summon into the original number 39 Utopia. From this point, you're going to go ahead and go into the battle phase. Because of number 39 Utopia Double's effect, that original copy of Utopia is now going to have 5,000 attack. You're going to go ahead and attack one of your opponent's monsters with the Utopia. You're going to use the effect of Utopia to negate its own attack, because you are allowed to do that, and then you're going to go ahead and use the effect of your double or nothing as a quick play spell, and because that attack was negated, the Utopia can now make a second attack, but the attack is now going to be doubled from 5,000 up to 10,000 attack, and now you're able to attack into one of your opponent's monsters, hopefully deal over 8,000 points of damage, and be able to win the game with 1 single attack. Isn't that just crazy that a card like this is actually able to be so destructive? I mean, this is like some anime level shit that we're seeing, and we actually get to see it in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! I just think that's absolutely incredible. But the thing is, now that this combo is widely known, basically this is something you're going to have to be cognizant of every single time you're going up against any sort of rank 4 base build, or realistically any build that can be playing rank 4s, because when we saw Jesse Cotton playing this was being used in Sky Striker. I mean, Sky Striker only has 1 level 4 monster being Ray, and while sure it is easy to get multiple copies of Ray onto the field, whether it's through destroying your own copy of Air Zero, through normal summoning, through Ray coming back from a mech being destroyed, like there's plenty of ways to do that. That was probably one of the decks that would least likely be able to facilitate a rank 4, but yet here it is being able to take games left and right. The thing is though, you have to consider the fact that when you're using this combination and that Utopia is swinging in for 10,000 attack, it has to be attacking into a monster that's going to have 2,000 or less attack, so that way you're going to be able to deal the full 8,000 in 1 single attack. So let's go ahead and take a look at the metagame. Well, when you're going up against Sky Striker, you're going to be faced with something like a Shizuku most likely during your opponent's end phase. So as long as they don't have over 6 spell cards in the graveyard, that Utopia Double is going to be able to swing in for that full 8,000, and the Sky Striker player is just going to lose on the spot. And that's one strong advantage, because when it comes to Sky Striker, you cannot play the grind game with that deck. Sky Striker can outpace pretty much any control deck of the format because that's how the deck is designed. It's meant to slow poke and just slowly chip away at your opponent's resources. But with a combination like this, you can just swing in at that Shizuku, take it out with one hit, and your opponent's life points with it. Let's take a look at another deck. Look at Salamangreat. Salamangreat has Sunlight Wolf, which Sunlight Wolf has only 1800 attack, which means you can just go ahead and take this Utopia hidden for 10,000 and just kill your opponent. It doesn't matter that Balinx is going to protect it. They're going to be dead before they can do anything else. So this is actually pretty strong against Salamangreat as well because they honestly don't have any protection other than like their counter trap. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. Take a look at another deck like Orcust. Orcust typically leaves up a copy of Galatea on the field, which only has 1800 attack. So if you can get this attack to connect, again, you're going to be able to OTK your opponent with one single attack. But now you might be thinking, how am I going to get through? Because when you're talking about Salamangreat, they have stuff like Roar and other cards to protect it. Against Sky Striker, they've got stuff like Widow Anchors and then Hand Traps. And then when you're going up against Orcust, they've got the setup with like Dingirsu and possible Fog Blades and all these different types of things. Well, this is what's really interesting. If you guys recall not too long ago, we've seen a theory similar to what I'm about to discuss with the card Mystic Mine. And I know what you're thinking, Mystic Mine, here we go. But just hear me out. So one of the theories with Mystic Mine is that before anyone was really main decking spell and trap removal, what people were doing was they were essentially throwing all of their resources at their opponent to get all their forms of negation baited out of the way. So basically they would waste everything like their Crescendo or their Roar or their Hand Traps or anything, and then they would just stick Mystic Mine on the field because now there's no other way for their opponent to stop it, and because people weren't main decking that spell and trap removal, they would just lose on the spot because their deck had less cards than their opponent, and they would just realistically deck out because they had no in-deck out to a copy of Mystic Mine. Well, you can apply that same theory to a Utopia Double, and the reason for that is because, yeah, it's a little bit more susceptible to more sorts of removal because Fog Blade and all these other different types of effect negators are going to be much more applicable to monsters than something like Mystic Mine, which is a spell. And while that's a fair point, you have to think, if you can just throw everything you've got at your opponent, but you can still get 2 level 4s on the board, let's say you're going to bait out those Widow Anchors, you're going to bait out that Crescendo, that Roar, whatever it is, then if you can just get Utopia Double to stick, and you can get that effect to resolve, you most likely just won yourself the game right there, because that attack is most likely going to go through, and it's going to be GG for your opponent. So the theory is still very much the same, but it's something that now your opponent is going to be slightly more cognizant of just because now this is a much more known strategy. But in some instances, your opponent's not really going to have any option to just take it. And the thing is, I would rather put my opponent on having the force of negation in terms of something like Effect Veiler or anything like that, because if they don't have it, you automatically win that game. And realistically, depending on the composition of your hand or if your opponent has a full setup, you might not have been winning that game anyway if you didn't have any way to slow them down during their turn 1. So this is a way that you can easily just win the game outright, albeit it is a little bit cheap, but since when do we care about that? A win is a win, and that's one way that you can go ahead and just stop all your opponents from winning and take those victories as quickly as possible. Now, like all cards I discuss, I do want to discuss the downsides as well, because there is a very big glaring flaw with this combination of cards, and that is the fact that not only do you have to run a card in your main deck that's effectively a brick or a card that doesn't do anything outside of facilitating this combo, but you also have to run 2 cards in your extra deck that are only, their sole purpose is essentially to OTK your opponent. And depending on the deck that you're playing, you may not have the room to do that. I mean, when you look at the extra decks of some of the top meta contenders, they really don't have the room to be playing 2 extra deck cards. I mean, you could maybe get away with playing 1. Typically, extra decks might have like 1 flex spot that they have room for, but 2 is definitely pushing it. You also have to consider the fact that, speaking of the top meta decks, not really any of the meta decks can really play this. Yeah, sure, Sky Striker can get away with it. We obviously saw that that was effective, but also I guess Salamangreat could maybe play it just because they do have the ability to make rank 4s. We see they play Abyss Dweller, Bagooska, so on, but are they really going to play this when they have an option like Violet Chimera, which is searchable and is a lot more easier just because they don't have to play a brick card, and it's kind of just in engine, they're not restricted by stuff like Mirage Stalio, different things like that. It might just be better to stick to that route. So this is definitely more of a roguish option, but that doesn't mean there aren't a plethora of different decks that can take advantage of this. I mean, Pendulum Magician has a ton of level 4s and can incorporate a combination like this. We've seen this being played in decks like ABC, and literally any rank 4 deck that will ever see competitive play from here on out is probably going to be playing this combination because it is so potent. But you do have to keep in mind you're going to have a generally less consistent engine, or deck rather, just because you are playing that one brick. And does justifying playing that one brick enabling you to play this combo, is it worth it? It could realistically be worth it. I think it just solely depends on the metagame. I think one other thing to consider too here is the fact that this combo is very susceptible to removal. I alluded to this earlier when I was talking about the fact that this card is a monster, and comparing it to the theory like with Mystic Mine, it's a little bit more difficult to justify because Mystic Mine doesn't have inherently as many negation cards compared to a monster effect. You've got stuff like Effect Veiler, you've got Fog Blade. There's just so many more inherent monster negators than there are spell negators, so it's going to be a lot more difficult to force all those different reactions out of your opponent to get rid of all of their disruption before sticking this copy of Utopia Double on the field. It isn't impossible by any means, but I think you're going to see that by comparison, you might have a much more difficult time pulling this off, just solely due to the fact that it's going to be more difficult to play through all the different forms of disruption your opponent may have. Again, depending on how the meta shifts, it really could depend. Effect Veiler could move out of the meta after the next ban list. Orcus could get the axe, which means the Fog Blades are going to go away. So it really just depends. The reason I wanted to bring you guys this video is to showcase this combination, but also to enlighten you guys to a combo that is very, very powerful in any deck that can facilitate rank 4 plays with any amount of ease. And I think we're going to start to see this a lot just because of not only how simple it is, it's very effective, it's very powerful, and being able to win a game like that with just 2 level 4s, that's all you need is 2 level 4s, I think is extremely powerful and something you definitely should not underestimate. So guys, that's going to do it for the video. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. And if you found this video helpful, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member. Because just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.